Jai Hind to all. I am Shivani Sharma from SVN Malerkotla. Today we are going to start a new topic of the science, which is friction. And before to start the topic, I have some questions. That have you ever observed when we are moving a vehicle, then when we want to stop the vehicle, we apply brakes on that, and by applying a brakes, it suddenly stops. And sometime when we slip foot on a banana peel or some peel placed on a surface, then we just slip on that. Why this happens? And when we are moving on a smooth surface, we are not able to walk properly on the surface, either we slip on that. Why all these things happen? So today we are going to find out the answers of such questions in this topic. So let's start the topic. So we'll start this topic with the definition of the friction. Friction opposes the relative motion between two surfaces in contact. Means when two objects come in contact with each other, then one force comes into play, which is called a frictional force, and this force acts always between the surface of the two objects. Means a force when there are two surfaces, and suppose these are two surfaces, and when these come in contact with each other, then a force comes into play which opposes the motion. Means if one object wants to move, then the another force opposes it in the opposite direction. So we can say that frictional force is always acts opposite to the direction of the motion. As I am moving forward, so there is one force which applies on me, and that which tends me backward, and that force is frictional force, and that force comes from the surface. Okay, so this is the definition of the frictional force. So next we will discuss here the factors on which frictional force depends. Frictional force depend on the nature of the surface. So the nature of surface means surface either of two types. One is smooth surface and second is the rough. All the surfaces who are smooth in nature, they tends less friction, while all the surfaces who are rough, they tends to be more friction. But why it happens, this we will discuss later on. But this is the one factor which depend on the frictional force, which is the nature of the surface. If the surfaces are smooth, then less frictional force will applied. If the surfaces are rough, then more frictional force will applied. This is the first factor. Second factor, friction is independent of the area of contact. As I have explained, this frictional force always applies between the two surfaces which are come in contact with each other, but it is independent of the area. Whatever the area of the contact, either the area is more or the area is less, it doesn't depend on the surface. Third is frictional depend on how hard the two surfaces pressed together. We can also say it depends on the mass. If one object is heavy, suppose there is one box A which is heavy and it is placed on a surface, so it will heavy to move that box because weight of the box is more, so it pressed harder with the surface, means frictional force is more if the weight is more. And if another box B, which is light in weight, or we can say which is less in weight, and if we want to move that box, then it will easily move. Why? Because it pressed not so harder as the heavy object. So mass is also another factor which affect the frictional force. So coming to the next portion, cause of the friction. Now we will discuss that why this frictional force come into play. Friction is caused by the irregularities on the surface. As we discussed, see, this is a surface. Each and every surface, either a surface is rough or smooth, every surface have some irregularities. These are irregularities. And we also know that frictional force comes into play when two objects come in contact. This is one surface and this is another object, another surface which is on that surface. And when two objects come in contact, and every object have present some irregularities, these irregularities come in contact with each other. When two surfaces come in contact with each other, their irregularities become interlocked, and these interlockings are the main cause of the friction. And a surface we have to apply a force, and as we have discussed that smooth surfaces we having a less frictional force, because smooth surfaces, the interlockings of the smooth surfaces are less as compared to the rough surface. So if the surface is smooth, so interlockings will be less, so it will easy to move. But if the surface is rough, then more interlockings will be present. If the object is more hardly interlocked, then we have to apply more force to come into play. So this is a cause of the friction. What is the cause? Interlocking or irregularities between the two surfaces is the major cause of the friction. Next we will discuss about the types of friction. Friction is of different type. It is mainly of three types. Static friction. First of all, static means when the object is at rest. When object is not at all moving, means here we will take again one table. It is at rest. Table A, it is at rest, means this table is in contact with the surface, means the interregularities present between the surface and the table are totally interlocked. So it will hard us to move, because firstly we need to apply a force to overcome these interlockings. After that it will move. So one static friction, when the object is at rest, the force which applies on that object is a static friction. Second is a sliding friction. Suppose this table, it is already moving, means somebody have pushed it and after that it start moving, and some another person come and also helps him to move, then it will easy both of them to move it for a long distance. Why this happens? Because of this sliding friction. Because it already starts sliding over the surface, means interlockings are already overlocked. So interlockings have already overcome, so it will easy to move so far. So this is the second type, which is a sliding friction when already object is in motion. And the third type is a rolling friction, when one body rolls over the another. Rolls means, as you have seen, it is easy if we apply wheels under this box, then it will easy to move. Means now this box start rolling on the another surface. So this is the third type, when one body rolls over the surface of another body, the resistance to its motion is called the rolling friction. So these are three types of frictional force which we have discussed. So we will continue the next topic of the chapter in the next class. Till now, goodbye to all.